In the wizarding world of Harry Potter, one of the most feared and powerful dark wizards was Lord Voldemort. He had devised a way to achieve a form of immortality by creating Horcruxes, objects in which he concealed a part of his soul. While the idea of Horcruxes is well known, there is a theory that proposes an alternative method through which Voldemort could have truly achieved eternal life, by using a Dementor to survive. In this article, we explore how this alternative scenario could have actually unfolded and the potential implications it may have had on the wizarding world. The power of Horcruxes. Before delving into the alternative theory, let's briefly recap the concept of Horcruxes. A Horcrux is created when a dark wizard splits their soul by committing an act of murder, then encases a fragment of that soul in an object. By doing so, the wizard ensures that even if their body is destroyed, they can be resurrected from the Horcrux as long as one exists. Voldemort created multiple Horcruxes, making him incredibly difficult to defeat. The Dementors Kiss. The Dementors Kiss is one of the most terrifying and dreadful powers in the wizarding world, practiced by the soulless creatures known as Dementors. These beings, which are known to be the guards of the notorious wizarding prison Azkaban, possess the ability to drain all happiness and hope from their victims, leaving them in a state of utter despair and emptiness. Their signature move, the Dementors Kiss, is perhaps the most feared fate one can suffer. When a Dementor performs the kiss, it latches onto its victim and sucks out their soul through their mouth. The victim is left as an empty, soulless shell, devoid of all positive emotions and condemned to a fate worse than death, a fate where even the idea of hope and happiness becomes nothing but a distant memory. The idea of Voldemort discovering a way to harness this horrifying power is a chilling thought. As one of the most powerful dark wizards in history, Voldemort constantly sought ways to increase his own power and dominate the wizarding world. If he were to find a means to control Dementors and direct their kiss at his command, it would undoubtedly spell doom for anyone who dared to oppose him. With such power at his disposal, Voldemort could effectively eliminate his enemies by condemning them to a fate of eternal despair. Entire communities could be brought to their knees, their spirits crushed, and their will to resist obliterated. The mere threat of his Dementor-controlled kiss would be enough to instill fear and compliance among those who remained under his rule. Moreover, if Voldemort were to harness the power of the Dementor's kiss, he might find a way to extract the life force from his victims and channel it into himself, further augmenting his strength and immortality. This would make him an even more formidable adversary, with the ability to sustain his life by feeding on the souls of others. The consequences of such a scenario would be catastrophic for the wizarding world. The light of hope would dim, and darkness would reign supreme. The wizarding community would live in constant fear, knowing that any act of resistance could lead to the loss of their very souls. The concept of Voldemort wielding the Dementor's kiss serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of standing up against tyranny and evil. Fortunately, in the original Harry Potter series, Voldemort never gains control over the Dementors in this manner, thanks to the efforts of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, who bravely fought against the dark forces threatening their world. This highlights the power of unity, courage, and the resilience of the human spirit against even the most terrifying of magical terrors. The alternative scenario. In the wizarding world of Harry Potter, the tale of Lord Voldemort's quest for immortality through Horcruxes is well known. However, there exists an alternative scenario, a daring and perilous path that he could have chosen to achieve eternal life. In this scenario, Voldemort would have sought out a powerful and loyal Dementor, forging an alliance that could change the course of history. Let us delve deeper into this dark and intriguing possibility. As Lord Voldemort inches closer to the darkest arts of magic, his hunger for power and immortality grows insatiable. The concept of creating Horcruxes, splitting his soul, and concealing fragments within objects was a method that offered him a form of invincibility. But the vulnerability of his Horcruxes, potential targets for his enemies, troubled him. He sought an alternative, a more secure means of achieving eternal life. In his relentless pursuit, Voldemort discovered a unique and dreadful potential in the Dementors, the soulless beings that thrived on the despair of others. He pondered whether it was possible to establish a connection with a Dementor, forming an unholy alliance that could grant him eternal life. To forge this alliance, Voldemort would have had to offer the Dementor something of great value, something that appealed to its insatiable craving for despair, a steady supply of souls to feast upon. He understood that the Dementors derived power and sustenance from consuming souls, and thus, he could entice them with the promise of abundant victims. Convincing a Dementor to serve him faithfully would be no easy task. Dementors were ancient, enigmatic creatures with motives and desires beyond human comprehension. Voldemort had to wield his formidable powers of persuasion and manipulation to strike a deal with one of these soulless entities. In this alternative scenario, the Dementors Kiss would serve a new purpose. Instead of using it to consume his soul, Voldemort would channel the Dementors Kiss to extract only a fragment of his soul, just enough to create a tether between himself and the Dementor. The Dementor would become a living Horcrux, holding a part of his soul within its dark, hollow being. Once the Dementor held a part of his soul, a powerful and unbreakable bond would form between Voldemort and the Dementor. He would have achieved a unique and unprecedented form of immortality. Even if his body were destroyed, his soul would endure, anchored to the Dementor. Through the Dementor's Kiss, he could be reborn time and again, defying death indefinitely. However, this alternative path to immortality would not come without its costs. The Dementor's influence on Voldemort's soul could prove to be treacherous. The constant connection to a being that thrived on despair might darken his own heart, heightening his malevolence and cruelty. With a loyal and powerful Dementor by his side, Voldemort would become an even more formidable force. The mere mention of his alliance with the Dementor would send shivers down the spines of those who dared to stand against him. The wizarding world would face an unprecedented level of terror and darkness. This alternative scenario paints a terrifying picture of how Voldemort's story could have unfolded. His alliance with a Dementor would have rewritten the history of the wizarding world, leading to unforeseen consequences and new challenges for those who opposed him. The Eternal Tether. With the Dementor holding a fragment of his soul, Voldemort would have achieved a form of immortality. As long as the Dementor exists, so does the piece of his soul, ensuring that even if his physical body were destroyed, he could be reborn through the Dementor's Kiss. This eternal tether would have granted Voldemort a unique kind of invincibility, making him virtually indestructible. Implications on the wizarding world. If Voldemort had chosen the dark path of harnessing the Dementor's Kiss for his immortality, the implications on the wizarding world would have been profound and far-reaching. The already considerable fear surrounding Dementors would have skyrocketed, as people would now view them not only as soul-sucking entities, but also as potential tools for the Dark Lord's resurrection. The very presence of Dementors would become a constant reminder of the impending danger, spreading an aura of despair and hopelessness across the magical community. The Ministry of Magic would have been confronted with an unprecedented crisis and forced to adopt new and drastic strategies to combat this menacing development. The conventional methods of dealing with Dementors, such as the use of the Patronus charm, might have proven ineffective against Dementor minions under Voldemort's command. The Aurors and other magical law enforcement agencies would have to be retrained and equipped with more potent defenses to counter this new level of threat. The general public would live in a state of perpetual anxiety, unsure of whom they could trust. With Dementors potentially lurking anywhere, even within the Ministry itself, paranoia and suspicion would permeate all aspects of magical society. This could lead to a breakdown in trust between witches and wizards, potentially dividing the community and making it more susceptible to manipulation by dark forces. As the fear of Voldemort's return and the influence of Dementors spread, there would likely be a rise in vigilante groups and underground resistance movements. Some individuals might resort to extreme measures, believing that only drastic actions can save them from impending doom. This could lead to conflicts within the wizarding world, with factions emerging either in support of Voldemort's ideology or vehemently opposing it. In the face of such a dire threat, prominent figures from the original series like Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley would be compelled to take on different roles. Their mission to defeat Voldemort would become even more urgent, as they would have to find a way to counteract the dark magic now intertwined with the Dementors. The trio would need to rally others and unite the wizarding community against this formidable foe, inspiring hope in the darkest of times. The implications of Voldemort wielding the power of the Dementor's Kiss would undoubtedly alter the course of history in the wizarding world. It would not just be a battle against an individual, but a fight against the pervading fear and despair that comes with the loss of one's soul. However, as seen throughout the original series, the wizarding community has shown resilience and strength when united against evil. Facing this unimaginable threat, they would have to muster the courage to confront their deepest fears and stand together to preserve their world and protect the very essence of what makes them human. While the idea of Voldemort using a Dementor to achieve immortality remains a fascinating theory, it is important to remember that it is merely speculation. J.K. Rowling's original tale of Horcruxes and Harry Potter captivated audiences around the globe. It reminds us of the consequences of seeking power at any cost and the ultimate triumph of love over hatred. As we close this hypothetical exploration, let us cherish the original story that brought us joy and life lessons. Voldemort's fate may have been sealed, but the magic of Harry Potter will live on forever.